announcers later. Now, our next speaker is going to be Miss Mtoba, and I don't know if you know the story of South Africa, but there are so many stories. One that catches me: this is the only country in the world that had first lady from two countries. The first lady of the nation was from two countries, and that is Madame Graça Machel, who was first wife of Mr. Samora Machel of Mozambique. He passed away in an accident, and then our great Madiba, Nelson Mandela, was released, and he comes out and he marries Michelle Graça. So that same lady, first lady of two countries, the only country in the world. And so for Ms. Fulthi, I think you need to enlighten us about yourself, because there is Eswatini and then there is South Africa connection. Both are very strong. Who are you and what do you stand for? Over to you.
Thank you very much. This is on. Thank you very much. Is that on? Oh, yes. Okay, thank you very much, Issa. I guess I'll also start by asserting my relationship with Taiwan, because everybody has done that today. So I'm born, bred, raised in Eswatini. So I have known about Taiwan and its impact that it has done in Eswatini. I actually keep a very, very close watch to it, and I follow it all the time. And then I got married in South Africa, and like a very good makoti, which is a bride. When you enter a new country, you have to get in there and a home, and you work very hard. And in my stay there, I had a close relationship with Taiwan as an officer when I was the president of Business Unity South Africa. So it really is my pleasure to be here today, and I thank you very much for your invitation. And I would also like to make a special thank you to you, Madame Lindiwe. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. She's from my home country, so I have to single her out. In fact, before I came here, I should have presented my credentials, right? When I entered the country. Thank you for joining us this morning as well. I think what really excites me is that we are in this room this morning, Ambassador, because I think we all share a dream. And the dream that we share is of leaving the world better than we found it. It's a dream of creating a world, not only living better than we found it, but improving the world. That is why all of us sitting here, our gaze is about ourselves and then the other. And what I really liked about this morning discussion was the connection of humanity in the conversation, in that sometimes when we talk about development, it almost sounds like we're talking about structures. And all we are talking about is humankind, is improving humanity, making it easy for humanity, creating an inclusive world, a world where everybody belongs, and every child who's born today and tomorrow can really find expression and achieve their potential. That's what really makes me excited about this conversation. So I'll start off in linking with Jack. So I like to do the things very practical. So from what we've heard from Jack, he has a dream about creating an institution that's going to facilitate. So what he's planning to do is to use me to see whether whatever he's planning works. So in that's the simple way of putting it. So I'll start off by quoting from my country, South Africa, from their National Development Plan. And it says, so this National Development Plan was created way back in 2012, and our current president, Cyril Ramaphosa, was then one of the chairs of this National Development Plan. And it says that in 2030, I quote, there will be integrated rural areas where residents will be economically active, have found security, access to basic services, health care, and quality education. Achieving this will require leadership on land reform, communal tenure security, infrastructure, financial and technical support to farmers, and building the capacity of the state institution and industries to implement these interventions. Close quote. So what this quote sounds like is just what we've spoken about this morning in its entirety. So in Harvard, as we attended it, one of the reasons we were invited there is they believe that as we were entering into our third career, because they don't want to call it retirement, they believe that we could add more to society given their contribution in the previous life. But what they do is to also try to give you the tools and resources for you to be able to do that. That's why Jack was attending those 19 courses. He was thinking out of it he will gain something, and he found one actually in just one. So my project, which has been intriguing me, is if you look at rural South Africa, we have areas where the land is under communal rule. And you find that those areas have remained underdeveloped. And the reason for this underdevelopment is just from the financial institutions. They don't invest in those areas because they believe that the land, they have no collateral to that land. So in being an accountant and involved in finance and the financial services sector myself, I've watched this and I felt this cannot be right, because there are many ways in which you could create the land to be productive such that you can develop that land and not focus on the right of the land, but create another asset that you can use as a collateral. What this non-investment in the land has created is that you find that there is rampant poverty in those areas, unemployment, youth unemployment. Just to give you an example, 19 million, which is 35% of the population in South Africa, dwell in these rural areas. And the rate of unemployment in South Africa itself is about 38%. And we have a youth population which is about 35%. So you can just spread it across. So what this issue of undeveloped rural community, which forms such a large part of the community, and in fact, it has really resulted in the critical crisis of South Africa, where you find inequality and challenges of unemployment. The other side of it is that these areas have got a larger population of women, so they are the ones that are subjected to this area. So my argument therefore is that we can develop these areas if we look at them as dynamic, innovative ecosystems, and then we look at the land governance itself, and also look at how, if you change the land governance, you can attract private sector investment. So then this whole concept falls squarely in the lessons that we've learned from the experience in this country, in that the idea is to apply the general framework of development and the role of innovation and entrepreneurship. Particularly the role of innovative system in creating this innovation ecosystem. So I have consulted with Professor Lin, who knows a lot about land reform, and he's going to try and assist in that, in inputting in how we create those innovative ecosystem in those rural areas. So in terms of, I hear the click at the back then, so I'm gonna jump. So the areas where we will pilot this are the most poorest rural areas in South Africa, which is the Eastern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal and Limpopo. And this will involve having a relationship with the chiefs that have the responsibility for that land, and working together with them to develop it. So it's quite a complex project, and it will need a multifaceted way of attacking it. But what makes me excited about it is that it firstly is a big challenge, and secondly, if you break through one of those areas, you can be able to replicate it across the country. So how do I see as a way forward, or what do I expect maybe this room to be thinking about, is to think about what are the agreed ways in which we can collaborate, and also identifying the potential for diverse multi-actors, because if you talk about a land in area, you don't need one thing. So you will need agriculture, you will need education, you need infrastructure, you need financiers. So it's putting together a whole lot of multi-actors. And then also, how do we make it practical and also create the impact that we need? So we need to see young people develop, so we need to be able to measure the success year in and year out. Yeah, I guess I'll contribute later when we do the discussion.
Thank you, Futhi. As you were talking, I was recollecting Calestis Juma's book, The New Harvest, in which he discusses about land and agribusiness and everything in between. And I recollect two figures that popped in my mind, that 60% of arable land in the world is in Africa. 60%. And water utilization in Africa is 15%. So there is a really huge opportunity to do more. But land is sacred in Africa, Ms. Futhi. And I only know of one country that has had some land reforms to allow development, and that is Rwanda. So, before we are able to break for lunch, you will have an opportunity to respond to one question that I think you need to prove over between now and the opportunity after Jack has given us an answer to the question that I've given him. The question to you is not only the case of South Africa, but look at the rest of Africa. We, as you said with Dr. Lin, we have perhaps a case study pertaining to Taiwan that could be very useful. But using your experience from Africa and South Africa, what do you think would be the building blocks to get across this message so that land is easily available, land is easily convertible, land can be developed? What is the code that we need to break? Can you figure this out? Because there must be a password that we need to dial in and crack this thing. It is a huge problem and it is holding back major developments. So, Ms. Futhi, think about that and give us the secret recipe later on, and then we will use Jack's microwave to get across.